Okay, hi everybody. This is a Futures Studies and Corporate Foresight program, and this particular session is for the strategic foresight. So I'm going to go through with you the essence of strategic foresight in terms of what it takes as a concept. Then I will give you a little bit more wider background why it is necessary to do strategic foresight, and then in the end I'm going to give you a case study for that. But let's start with a concept. But before going there, I'm explaining myself a little bit. I'm Markku Wilenius, and I've been with the Future Studies for more than 20 years. I've been mostly working in the academic domain, but at times I've been also working in the businesses. And that's why the corporate foresight, the idea of how corporates and companies are working with understanding better of their future threats and opportunities is pretty much close to me. Now, when we go and try to understand what do we mean by strategic foresight, the most important thing to start off with is actually something that the founder of Finland Future Studies Research Center, Pentti Malaska, said at once, which says that essentially foresight and future studies is all about understanding how ignorant we are about the future. So more we understand how ignorant we are about the future, more we have chances to actually to explore that unknown, which is the future. And there, the future studies has its very legitimate place. Igor Antsov was another founding fathers of future studies, and he observed that one of the key issues when he looked at the companies was that they are not overly interested in things that are waiting around the corner for them. They are more directed to look at their immediate environment, and that causes problems for the companies because they at times are simply unprepared for the type of changes that happens in their environment. We need to ask, if we are talking about the strategic foresight, what is strategic? And the whole idea of a strategy comes actually from the situations in war. And there are a number of war strategists that have at times tried to place the idea that how the understanding of which type of the moves you need to make in the future to improve your own position is something that has been actually taken as a basic idea of what the strategy is all about. But when we add to the strategy or strategic, this idea of the foresight, then we can probably formulate this in the following way. Activities that inform decision makers by improving the inputs about the long-term future of an organization. So that's the simply put the idea of what are we actually doing when we are doing foresight. The essence when we're talking about particularly the corporate environment is that how with strategic foresight we can increase and improve the value creation. And there are a number of points here. First, it is really about creating coherent and functional forward view. So not just a sporadic, but coherent, consistent, holistic. Essentially, the idea is also to be very sensitive towards changes. Any change factors that we can see is a part of strategic foresight and understanding these changes may create immense value for corporates. It supports also strategic planning, the planning meaning that when we are actually design the action of the company, because we get insight from these strategic foresight exercises which we need to implement into the strategic planning. And lastly, but not least, it's the issue of how we actually improve the innovation capacity. And we know that the more we go from here to the future, the more companies need their innovation capacity to survive, simply because the world is becoming much more complex. So, all in all, the issue about the strategic foresight is much to shake and contest the current models of thinking in the companies and corporate environment. And thus it is kind of a critical force that we are using. We can differentiate three different elements in strategic foresight. I call it the structure. The first part of the structure is about the observations. It's about perceiving things. It's about, as we call it in future studies, about detecting the weak signals, ideas of how things are changing, what is emerging. So it's all about the environmental scanning, which gives us an idea, what's the state of the art, what's the kind of the issues that are in the flux, coming or going. From there, we go into this interpretation, which is really about the understanding what these signals are. How do we interpret the reality? And there, we have in the future studies a number of different vehicles using scenario methods, using Delphi studies and so forth. The purpose of that phase is really to enable us to build a vision which is more than just to have objectives. It's really to have a clear idea what is the future state, where we want to go. And then the third part is all about the learning. It's all about actually processing what we have understood, what we have learned in terms of the changing nature of things as we move towards the future. So it's, in that sense, it's also really about the strategy and strategy implementation, out of which the actual action need to be followed. So the question here is that when we do have that vision and we are capable of finding out the different means to get into that vision, that is what builds the whole strategic foresight. And Steve Jobs here is a fantastic example of the person that saw before everybody else what is happening in terms of digital convergence and what does it take from those products and services to get onto the next stage and make it very successfully. So, this was the first part.